Shin had never been lucky in life. While some people seemed born to win, he was always on the other side. Tired of everything, he decided to quit the company where he had worked for almost 3 years. It wasn't an easy decision, but he knew he couldn't go on. In the letter, he explained the reason for leaving. To him, it was like a disease, an invisible pain no one could see, but one that ate him alive from the inside. What he didn't know was that the company's director was the same woman he had a past with. When she read his resignation, she thought everything was connected to their divorce, but he made it clear she was wrong. This was about something much bigger. He had reached a point where he understood how life can change in the blink of an eye, from success to failure. Even so, she didn't challenge the letter. She only asked him not to change his mind. Without another word, he turned around and walked toward the door. But before he left, she called out to him. Instead of a simple goodbye, she vented. She said they had spent 4 years together and that he still insisted, but she didn't want that kind of life. She didn't want to live in a small apartment and exist as someone without dreams. Her vision was different. She wanted something bigger, something beyond what he could offer at that moment. He understood. Even with a tight chest, he respected her choice. That's why he never tried to convince or force anything. People around them started saying that this relationship was what made Xiao give up on life, that it turned him into a failure. But the truth was that he had been feeling empty for a long time. No good ideas crossed his mind. He only thought about how fast people are to judge others as winners or losers. That's when something changed. He decided that from that moment on, no one else would have the right to decide who he was. With that firm thought and a bit of strength regained, he went back to take care of his own life, said goodbye to his coworkers, and left, not as a defeated man, but as someone who was finally ready to start over. In the middle of the hallway, Xiao ran into Huan. Huan Fei was the heir to the wage group and had always lived with the best of everything. He had known Xiao for a while, so he greeted him politely and even thanked him for taking care of Man Sitzi, but the mood soon changed. Some people started whispering in the corners, saying that Xiao and Man Sitzi were together and that this was the real reason behind his resignation. Xiao, already fed up, avoided conversation and said he was busy, but Han wouldn't let it go. He decided he wanted to turn Xiao's last day into a real nightmare. He began sharing intimate details about Xiao's past relationship with Man Sitzi, personal things no one needed to hear. He tried to provoke him, saying he had spent many moments with her and that he found it strange that after 4 years together, Xiao never had anything serious with her. Han then started mocking him, saying Xiao should see a doctor and take care of his health. The conversation was happening in the middle of the office, and the other employees began to pay attention and whisper among themselves. Jia, on the other hand, showed no strong reaction. Calmly, he asked Han if he was out of his mind for spreading such personal matters in front of everyone. That only made Han angrier. He thought Jia would break down, but seeing him so calm only fueled his rage. He lunged forward, calling Jia trash and throwing more insults. No one had ever spoken to Han like that before. Losing control, he ordered one of the security guards to beat Jia as revenge. The guard obeyed immediately and went straight at him, looking like he wanted to finish Jia right there. What no one expected was that Jia wasn't that easy to take down. Even though he looked like an ordinary guy, he proved he wasn't the loser everyone thought he was. When attacked, he took a kick to the leg but didn't falter. Right after that, he took down the first attacker with ease. The guard, a strong, bald man, hit the floor like he was nothing. Seeing this, Han got nervous and ordered the second guard to attack. He didn't want to just stand by and watch his colleague be humiliated. Jia wasn't afraid of this new opponent either. Even though the guard was bigger and stronger, Jia grabbed his arm at the right moment and faced him head-on. This fight was harder. The second guard was tougher than the first, and Jia had to push himself to defend and counterattack, but he didn't back down. Confident, Jia taunted the man, asking if he really thought he could win. Then he struck decisively, spinning his body and landing a direct kick to the opponent's head, dropping the second guard as well. For the first time in a long while, Jia felt good about himself. He realized that at least in this, he was truly good, but reality hit him fast. He was completely exposed. All he could do now was make clear who he was. He looked straight at Han and warned that if he dared to touch him again, he could forget about having a peaceful life in Jing. Han didn't back down. Instead, his expression hardened. Clenching his fists, he prepared to fight. When asked what he planned to do, he simply pointed to a corner of the room and said that was Zha's place, like a scared little dog. He warned that if anyone touched him again, both he and his father would take revenge. Even so, the tension didn't fade. The atmosphere stayed heavy because everyone knew the real problem wasn't just physical, but political as well. Zha was messing with the heir of a major company. Han then decided to end the dispute another way. He charged forward and punched Zha in the face, saying that if Zha's father hadn't taught him manners, he would. Zha didn't strike back. Even while being hit, he kept control. After that last blow, his body felt drained. He walked to the office completely exhausted, barely able to stand. It didn't take long for word of the fight to reach the company's leadership. Sanshan arrived quickly to calm the guards and understand what had happened. Her arrival caught Zha off guard. He couldn't hide his shock when he saw his ex-girlfriend standing in front of him, giving orders and demanding explanations. She was visibly angry. She went straight to asking why Zha had started that fight and why he was acting so aggressively. When he didn't answer, she turned away and rushed to check on Han Fei, clearly worried about his condition. Zha knew her better than anyone. They had spent 4 years together. He knew how she thought, how she felt. He knew what real love was. Because of that, he looked at her sincerely and asked if she was truly sure that her feelings for that rich heir were real. Zhou didn't answer. She was clearly more concerned about her new partner. Seeing that, Zha didn't want to stay there any longer. Before leaving, he only said that Huan was using her to satisfy his own desires. He said nothing more, leaving the conversation unfinished. Without wasting time, Zha went back to pick up a small box where he kept some of his work belongings. He grabbed everything quickly and headed straight for the exit. Being in that place made him feel suffocated. As soon as he left, he accessed the system he had been using. The interface showed that only 22 people had strong feelings for him. His maintenance score was 215 points. At that moment, he could exchange those points for a skill, and he chose to learn foreign languages. The exchange was successful, and he also gained a new ability related to physical enhancement. That same day, a window appeared in front of him, like a floating notification. Zha thought he was losing his mind from stress, but soon realized it was real. The system explained that it came from a parallel world and had chosen Zha as its user because it was tired of observing without acting. Its goal was to turn Zha into a true genius, someone capable of changing his own destiny. According to the system's analysis, Zha was an ordinary person, average in everything, and therefore needed to accumulate points and exchange them for improvements. Zha couldn't understand how that could change his fate. The system then explained that it couldn't simply give him money or military power, but it could strengthen the user himself, transforming Zha from the inside out by improving his knowledge, skills, and experience. The system asked for only one thing: trust. Suddenly, Zha received a message from his mother. His father was very ill and they urgently needed money. He didn't know what to say. He was in a difficult financial situation himself, but he couldn't abandon his family. Even without knowing how, he promised he would send the necessary amount within a few days. Now he needed to figure out how to get that money and who could help him. At that moment, Xiao clearly understood that a man without money feels incomplete, like someone who can't even take care of his own life. With no other option, he decided to call a friend. That friend had already heard from others that Xiao had quit his job. Now, Xiao was officially unemployed. He had no job and no mental space to dwell on the past. All he wanted was to find a quick way to make some money. While walking down the street, he was stopped by a little girl. She tried to get someone's attention, anyone at all. She was very young, lived on the streets, and had no family. She asked passersby for a few coins, just enough to eat. Xiao remembered going through something similar. The difference was that back then he at least still had a home, but he was in a hurry and told the girl he didn't have any money at the moment. The girl's eyes filled with tears and she apologized for bothering him. At that moment, Xiao, moved by the situation, pulled a few small bills from his pocket, everything he had, and placed them on her plate. To him, it was little. To her, it seemed like a lot. The girl was very grateful, started thanking him, and called Xiao a good person. She said he was someone who wouldn't abandon others. Then she turned and started walking away. But Xiao noticed something strange. Her steps were slow and uneven, as if her foot was injured. That caught his attention. The girl clearly couldn't walk properly. Right after that, Xiao's system sent a notification. He had received a temporary mission. The task was simple: save the mysterious girl. If completed, he would earn 300 points. But Xiao was confused. Save her from what and how? Even without fully understanding the objective, he accepted the mission. He quickly ended the call he was still on with his friend and began watching the girl from a distance, trying to figure out what he was supposed to do. After some time, he managed to talk to his friend again and asked if he knew any way to make money fast. The friend replied that he didn't work with customer service, so he couldn't help directly with that. But soon after, he remembered a useful contact, a broker who bought local products, took out loans, and resold them. In other regions, it could be a possible path. The idea of selling products sounded good, but the problem was that no one had made the deals the right way. The required loan hadn't even been approved. Even so, the friend explained that if Xiao had 130,000 yuan, he could make about 20,000 in just 20 days. Xiao got irritated and replied that if he had that much money, he wouldn't be asking for help to find a quick way to work. The friend then mentioned that he knew a woman who wanted to open a beauty salon. While listening to all this, Xiao kept his attention on the strange little girl he had seen earlier and soon noticed that someone was watching her. When the man realized he was being observed, he hid behind one of the houses. Suspicious, Xiao asked his friend to wait on the line for a moment, but the friend didn't like that. He complained, saying he wasn't a driver to sit around waiting and didn't want to waste time with delays. He had no idea about the strange situation Xiao was facing, and honestly didn't care much either. On the other side, Xiao began to hear a low conversation. Someone was threatening another person. He went around the house and saw the scene. A large, rough-looking man was taking money from the same little girl Xiao had helped earlier. The man was holding a knife and demanding more money. Coldly, he said that if she didn't pay, he would take what was left of her leg. The girl was already having trouble walking, and he threatened her with even more violence. Xiao was shocked. He didn't know how to act and didn't want to put the mission at risk. The man, with a cigarette hanging from his mouth, kept mocking the girl. He asked if she was really begging for mercy. He wanted to see her desperate. He took pleasure in having power over someone defenseless and even used it as a way to make money. Weak and exhausted, the girl was the perfect victim. He waved his fist close to her, making it clear it wasn't the first time. He said he was tired of being bothered by her every day and gave her a cruel choice. Either she started paying every day or she would have another leg broken. Xiao watched for a few moments, trying to see how far it would go, but when he realized it had crossed the line, he decided to act. With steady steps, he walked up to the man and ordered him to step away from the girl and leave her alone. His phone was still connected to his friend as Xiao gathered the courage to face the criminal. Concerned, Xiao warned him again. The man needed to back away from the girl or he would be the one getting hurt. The criminal just laughed, gripped the knife tighter, and asked if Xiao really wanted to get involved. But Xiao had already faced 2 security guards of an arrogant air before, so he wasn't afraid of a street thug. He was never good at solving conflicts with words, so without thinking much, he charged straight at the man. The man didn't expect that reaction. He thought Xiao was weak, but the first punch landed straight on his head. The impact was so strong that the man flew backward, slammed into the wall, and dropped the knife on the ground. Foam formed at his mouth, and his condition worsened by the second. On the other end of the line, Xiao heard his friend shouting, trying to understand what was happening. He was ready to call someone or even come in person to help, but Xiao wasn't focused on that now. What mattered at that moment was the little girl. She was in shock, frozen with fear. When she finally realized she was safe, she broke down in tears, crying loudly as if all her suffering were pouring out at once. For the first time in a long while, she felt protected. She wanted to go home, wanted her parents, but the reality was that no one was waiting for her. Xiao didn't know how to deal with children. He froze for a moment, but even afraid of doing something wrong, he tried to calm her down. He said he would take her to the police station where officers could take care of her and properly handle the situation. Little by little, the girl calmed down. She was no longer afraid of going to the police. Compared to what she had just been through, that seemed like the least of her problems. At that moment, Xiao remembered the friend who was still on the line waiting for an answer. He picked up the phone and explained that he didn't even have 50,000 yuan, so the beauty salon idea wasn't feasible. Soon after, Xiao headed straight to the police station. He carried the girl in his arms, unable to continue the conversation, but something bothered him. Ever since the alley, someone had been watching him from a distance. A quiet stranger was following his every move and seemed about to make a decision. Liu was a good man. After settling the girl's situation the day before, he returned home exhausted. It wasn't the first fight he had faced that day, so all he wanted was some rest. The next morning, he was woken by knocking at the door. It felt strange. No one usually visited him, especially not that early. When he opened the door, he came face to face with Yoon Chun, accompanied by several guards. They were there to ask for help. At first, Xiao didn't understand. The man's name sounded familiar. Then he remembered he was the richest man in the city, the same man he had seen on TV. It was really him. Surprised, Xiao invited him inside, still somewhat wary, and quickly offered him a glass of water near the door. He said he was just an ordinary young man and didn't understand why someone so important would be looking for him. Yoon Chan then revealed the reason. The day before, he had seen Xiao protecting the girl in the alley and was impressed by his skills. Immediately, Xiao grew uneasy. Had this man seen his secret system? But the system quickly responded in his thoughts, reassuring him. Ordinary people couldn't see it at all. What the millionaire wanted was simple, but delicate. He had a business rival who had recently allied with dangerous gangs, and he was worried about his daughter's safety. That was why he was looking for someone trustworthy who could protect her without drawing attention. The proposal was for Xiao to infiltrate her school as a student and, disguised as one, protect the girl from the shadows. Xiao hesitated. He didn't think he was suited to be a bodyguard, much less pretend to be a student. That's when the millionaire decided to be more direct. Money. He offered 1 million yuan. Xiao froze at the amount, and before he could respond, the man doubled the offer to 2 million without hesitation. It was too much money. Xiao had no way to refuse and accepted the job. He didn't know all the details, but with a reward like that, he would do his best. Besides, he urgently needed money for his father's recovery. The first step was to infiltrate the class where Yoon Chun's daughter studied, a class made up only of girls. Everyone wore the same school uniform. Most of them looked bored with the lessons and the atmosphere was dull. But Xiao knew that was just the beginning. The real challenge was still ahead. Soon, a new source of excitement appeared for the students, Xiao Lu. The moment he entered the classroom, everyone noticed him. He was impossible to ignore. The girls were impressed by the serious, confident presence of the new student. His striking looks, mysterious aura, and calm demeanor felt like something straight out of a drama. Almost all of them were captivated at first sight. Whispers began to spread. Was he a girl? He's way too handsome. What an elegant guy. Some wanted his attention, others just wanted to sit near him. He looked intelligent, proud, and mysterious, the perfect combination to cause a stir. But among all those excited girls, one student showed no interest. She only noticed that he was carrying a plain, ordinary bag, nothing more. The teacher, tired of the commotion, quickly told everyone to calm down and return to their seats. Even so, some students kept sneaking glances at him. Their looks didn't lie. Xiao was surrounded by attention, as if he had fallen straight into a den of wolves. Suddenly, he himself realized something strange. Why were there only girls in that classroom? Not a single other boy. While he was thinking about it, one of the students, who until then hadn't reacted to his arrival, decided to play a prank. Discreetly, she stretched out her leg to make him trip, and it worked. Xiao couldn't avoid it. He tripped, lost his balance, and fell right on top of the same girl. To make things worse, he instinctively tried to support himself and ended up touching her body. In that instant, he froze. The first thing that crossed his mind was, "She has a beautiful body." Without realizing it, he said it out loud. An awkward silence fell over the classroom. The girl turned red. Xiao panicked and immediately started apologizing. Other girls, hearing what he said, became jealous. The classroom turned into a chaos. Xiao wanted the ground to swallow him from embarrassment. To hide, he went to the farthest desk and sat there with his head down.
And the new student? What do you think about this? Just like that, he was in trouble again. During class, Xiao nearly fell asleep. He didn't even notice the teacher staring directly at him. A girl in the room, who had already been watching him closely, took the chance to cause trouble. She stretched her foot toward Xiao, trying to make him stumble, then told the teacher that he wasn't respecting the time and effort of the class. Xiao quickly realized that this girl, Yue Shi, was always trying to catch him making a mistake. Instead of arguing, he apologized to the teacher, explaining that he had arrived the day before and was still adjusting to the new place. He also said that was why he had fallen asleep. When the girl asked when exactly he had been disrespectful, all the girls in the class were impressed by his attitude, since no one had ever responded to her like that before. The girl started to get nervous because she wasn't used to being challenged. The teacher understood Xiao's situation, apologized, and decided to continue the lesson, changing the topic into a discussion. The meaning of the phrase, "money is the root of all evil." Yue Shi raised her hand to answer, quoting Shakespeare. She said that money has enormous power to confuse people, mixing truth and lies. Because of that, money creates greed, making people act badly and lose their sense of what is right. That's why she believed money was the source of many problems. Her classmates felt proud of her answer, especially Xiao. Xiao then decided to share his opinion to shift the mood in the room. He didn't agree that money was the main problem, at least not that all evil comes from it. Yue Shi disagreed and brought up a serious example from nearly 20 years ago when 12 people died and more than 5,000 became ill because of something related to money. Nearly 20 years ago, a terrorist attack happened in the Ahara 1 subway using poisonous gas. Many people were injured and some died. The person responsible was the leader of a cult who had even sold his own hair for 30,000 yuan. A general named Wang let soldiers pass because he wanted to capture Shen Wan, not money. Later, he became king of Yunnan and also managed to capture Yue Shi. Xiao then asked what the true source of evil was before money even existed. The girls in the class became curious, and Princess Yue tried to get his attention. Xiao explained that greed had always been the real root of evil because it is born inside people.
The bell rang soon after, ending the class, but the discussion continued among the students. Wanting to leave early, the teacher said these debates were important and asked someone to talk more about them after class. Later, a friend of Yi approached her and asked her to forgive Shaw, saying he hadn't meant to offend anyone, but Yi didn't care whether he was a guard or not. She wasn't going to let him off easily. When the other classes ended, Shaw wanted to go home, but he still had a special mission to complete. And Yi, on the other hand, was furious. At home, she made a phone call to a friend, asking him to deal with Shaw, her new guard. She didn't want to hear any excuses or show any mercy. She only wanted to show him what it meant to be arrogant around her. After Yi hung up, all that could be heard on the other end was the call tone. The man was furious with Shaw because the girl said he had deeply offended her. He adored her and treated her like a queen. Photos of her were even hanging in his house. Soon, the school term began. Sha Lu went to school with his classmates. He looked older than the others and stood out among them. Suddenly, Yi approached Sha with a different kind of smile. This time, she invited him to a party being held in honor of her birthday. Sha was surprised and thought something was off because that gentle attitude didn't suit her at all. He quickly realized it wouldn't be anything good and tried to refuse, but Yi wouldn't take no for an answer. She ordered him to get to the school gate where they would leave together for the party. She looked at Sha with a slightly angry expression and asked if his personal guard would be coming along. Sha wondered if she really knew why he was in her life or if she was just testing him. Even so, he accepted the invitation. At 6 p.m., he was already at the meeting place, but half an hour passed and no one showed up. He started to think it was all a trap, a lie. Then he heard a female voice calling his name.
It was his new teachers who invited him to go to the party with them. At exactly 7 p.m., she finally arrived, 1 hour late. She said she had been choosing a dress and didn't admit that she had delayed on purpose to get revenge on a classmate. Suddenly, she looked around and realized Shaw wasn't there. She called the school office and asked for his phone number. Shaw had to wait another 2 hours, and only at 9 p.m. did he finally sit with her. Before that, he said goodbye to the teachers, thanking them for the help. On the way, Yi tried to control her anger and showed no emotion. She ordered Shaw to get into the car with her. During the ride, Shaw complained about having waited 30 minutes. When they got close to Ju Village, he asked the driver and the others to stay quiet. Soon, the car stopped in a small spot near the house and everyone got out.
The guests were already waiting for the most important person of the night and were thrilled when Princess Yui arrived. But she chose to shift the focus away from herself and pointed to Shaw, saying the party was being held in his honor. Then she warned Desabi that if he tried to do anything bad to the new student, he would pay dearly. Desabi understood the warning and agreed without complaint. He then went to Shaw and said that the princess had spoken well of him, calling him a good young man. Shaw realized that this special treatment was not normal and now wanted to see how the other guests would react to him. Javai walked among the guests and found Chulan and Enin. He invited them to meet Princess Yui, and the girls, very excited, went to see her, all dressed for the party. Chulan, a bit worried, told her friends that Desabi had a very scary dog and that they were afraid. The princess decided to help and ordered Fui to bring the dog. Soon, the guard appeared with a large, strong dog held tightly on a leash. When the dog opened its mouth and showed its sharp teeth, almost everyone nearby got scared and tried to move away. Shaw told the girl to stay behind him because the dog looked dangerous and could bite at any moment. The girl thought Shaw was afraid and pushed him aside, saying the dog was just a normal dog and that he shouldn't be scared. Suddenly, the dog started barking loudly, saliva dripping from its mouth, frightening the group even more. Looking furious, the dog broke free from the leash that Fui couldn't hold and ran straight toward the princess nearby. Shaw reacted instantly and stepped in to protect her, ready to face the dog. He struck immediately, delivering a blow that stopped the animal for a moment. To Shaw, it was cruel, but he had no other choice because no one else was able to restrain it. Suddenly, the dog began to sense a strange energy that left it confused. Frightened by that presence, it stopped barking and became completely still. Shaw had released an aura of fear, and the animal ended up retreating toward its owner. This time, however, the dog turned on the man holding it, attacking him and leaving him badly injured. Princess Yui, terrified and drained of strength, collapsed into a seated position. She never expected her plan to go so wrong, to the point that an ambulance would be needed. Soon, some people in the group began to move away and received medical attention. The princess was placed on a chair, and her friends tried to calm her down, offering help and calling her personal doctor. She said she was fine and only needed some rest. Chulan noticed that the princess would not allow her guard to distance himself so easily. Shaw understood that the true objective of that mission had failed. Chulan stepped closer and warned that it was better for no one to approach Inu unless she allowed it. She asked Jinin to take care of the princess and ordered Shaw to go attend to the other guests.
Shaw realized that the village students had other plans for him and wanted to keep the party going. He agreed to go along and have some fun. Soon they asked Shaw if he only wanted to watch the experienced village players. Curious to see what Chulan's plan was and how everything would end, he agreed. Chulan then borrowed one of the boys who had been playing, and he accepted. She teasingly called Shaw a handsome man and asked if he knew how to play billiards. He replied that he had some experience. Ma Shulan looked at him with disbelief and said there was no way he could beat her. She proposed a bet. If Shaw managed to score even 1 point, he would receive 50,000 yuan, and she would even give him her card so he could call and receive the money. Shaw liked the idea of the bet, since the group treated it like a competition he had to win. The problem was that if Shaw lost, he had no money to pay. Still, Shaw found a way out. If he lost, he would have to leave the party and never come back. Shaw accepted the terms. At the start of the game, Shaw didn't make the first move. People began whispering that it would be better for Shaw to give up since Sister Lon was known to be very skilled. Shaw tried to use the system for help and asked if there was any skill he could use in the game. He could exchange 700 points to learn billiards like a professional, but he realized he only had 695 points and couldn't complete the exchange. Meanwhile, Shulan made the first shot, showing how real players handled the game. All the guests cheered for her, certain that she would win. Someone even joked that Shaw should kneel and beg mercy from the goddess of billiards. The girl explained that it was just a demonstration to show Shaw how the game worked. Shaw realized he would have to rely on himself and began thinking carefully about how to play. The guests assumed he had already given up, even though he hadn't said a word. In the end, Shaw looked at his own hands and noticed he didn't even know how to hold the cue properly. In truth, he had never played billiards before. On his first shot, the ball bounced and jumped on the table, making everyone certain he would lose easily. Shulan laughed at him, mocking him as a fool who didn't even know the rules of the game he was playing. Then, suddenly, the ball struck exactly where all the other balls were clustered, scattering them in every direction. 5 balls fell into the pockets at the same time, scoring heavily for Shaw. The guests were stunned, since not even professional players had managed such a feat in a single shot. The system immediately notified him that he had made 20 people doubt him and earned 33 points. Using those points, he exchanged them for the master billiards skill. The trade succeeded, leaving him with only 28 points afterward. It wasn't much, but it helped.
Chulan couldn't believe that Shaw had some hidden ability. Still, she handed him the bank card she had promised and challenged him to an official match worth another $50,000. Shaw asked what would happen if he pocketed all the balls, and Chulan replied that she would run 30 miles every time she saw him. She then asked what punishment he would choose for himself if he lost. Full of confidence, Shaw said he would turn himself into a dog. The girl was confused, unable to understand why he was so confident and provocative. The guests thought he had lost his mind. Even without much support, Shaw took the cue and, on his first shot, sent one of the balls straight into the pocket. Chulan forced a laugh to hide her growing concern and gave the turn back to Shaw. He reminded her of the terms of the bet and continued playing with intense focus. Shot after shot, Shaw pocketed the balls almost effortlessly, drawing shocked and excited looks from the guests. In the end, he scored 147 points, while his opponent finished with 0. When he finished pocketing all the balls, he thanked her for the game and asked Chulan to transfer the money to his card. Chulan tried to hold back her tears, but said that Shaw would regret humiliating her in front of everyone. Satisfied, Shaw left the party and went to visit Choo-Choo, who had recovered after the dog attack. Even though Choo-Choo was sad, he greeted her and asked her to take him home. Princess Y, who was not used to such a calm attitude, lost control and became very aggressive. Isine, who was with her, tried to calm her down. E took out her phone and started making calls for help. After a few minutes, Isine arrived and apologized to the princess for not being able to entertain her properly. He was not alone. With him came Huan Heen, a man who greatly admired the princess and wanted to arrange a meeting between them. Shaw was surprised to see the man who had taken a heavy blow earlier after threatening him. He became worried that Rei Fen might reveal everything about him and expose his secret. Acting as a guard, Sel turned his back on Rei Fen to avoid being recognized. Meanwhile, Rei Fen was introduced to the princess, and Shaw realized that no one had actually been invited to the party in his honor. Jinan grew irritated because Shaw was acting unpredictably, making the plan to replace him more difficult. Suddenly, Sha Rei appeared behind Rei holding a bottle of wine. This time, he decided to protect the princess and prevent her from speaking to anyone. The girls were surprised by Shaw's attitude, as he did not allow Rei Fen to get close to the princess. They fell silent, waiting to see what would happen next. Xiao improvised and said that the new guest was known for harassing many elderly women, which made it strange that he had been accepted there. The situation became tense and those nearby watched closely. Zhibei approached Xiao and asked if Ray Fen was really involved in such things. But that no longer mattered to him because Ray Fen had become his special guest and he would not let anyone mess with him. Jabir then called the guards and pointed at Xiao, saying that he had dared to touch his guest and that the best solution was to expel Xiao and make sure he never returned. Xiao did not want to fight and said he was already leaving, so there was no need to call the guards. Meanwhile, Jibei flirted with In and asked if she had lost anything at the party. They realized she could not find her expensive necklace and he offered to help look for it. After that, Ian ordered the guards to expel everyone from the party. Princess Yue sensed that something was wrong and felt that Fu had gone too far this time. Then the guards began searching for Xiao and tried to strip off his clothes. Xiao understood why they wanted to strip him since he had agreed to leave on his own, but he had enough strength to defend himself. He fought so well that it was dangerous for the guards to try to grab him. Xiao ran off, and when the men tried to chase him, he struck quickly to stop them from hurting him. One guard took a kick to the head, another was thrown against the wall as if he weighed nothing. Xiao looked light, but his strikes were powerful and precise. He landed on his feet and remained unharmed. Then he realized that Shi Yu had called him on purpose. Xiao felt something strange in his body and received a system notification. There was an urgent task for him. The system gave him an emergency mission. He had to find a mysterious shadow that had appeared near him. The reward was 300 points if he succeeded, but if he failed, he would lose 300 points. Since he only had 28 points, he needed to complete the task quickly. The shadow was very fast, and if Xiao lost sight of it, it would vanish. He chased after it without losing focus. After running about 100 meters, the shadow disappeared behind a house. Xiao almost lost the trail, but then he saw a man wearing a mask that hid his identity. The masked man was very alert, making the task difficult. 15 minutes later, Xiao saw a car near the village with several disguised men around it. The masked man was with them, and Xiao believed they were Shi Yu's personal guards. The masked man suddenly ran toward the car, and the guards became alert to the noise. The stranger leapt over the car without touching it, landing at a safe distance. Then he showed a weapon to the guards. He had stolen it from their pockets as he passed. When the guards realized the weapon was gone, they ran after him. Xiao continued chasing the shadow, which led him through almost the entire city.
Suddenly, a bell rang, warning that someone was threatening Xiao Yu. Xiao needed to escape quickly to Friyabi village so he could rest for a while. He took the opportunity to stretch his muscles, preparing for the next fight ahead. Xiao managed to reach the village just in time to save the girl. Meanwhile, Tai enjoyed the silence, resting alone near the pool. She did not expect Xiao to be someone interesting to her and began to rethink the way she saw him. Suddenly, the same masked stranger appeared behind the princess, now armed. The criminal covered her mouth so she could not scream for help or alert anyone, but she still hoped her father would hear her faint sounds and come to save her. Xiao was nearby and ran with all his strength to reach the villain as fast as possible. He delivered a powerful kick that the criminal could not withstand, forcing him to release the princess and retreat to a safer distance. The blow was extremely strong, but the thief was clever and, even with an injured hand, managed to escape quickly. He warned Luo that he had close combat skills and his speed was great enough to disappear from sight. Xiao realized that the criminal knew the area well, and that when Tai was alone, someone seemed to be spying and reporting everything around her. The princess could barely stand, feeling dizzy and unable to see clearly. She had been drugged with a strange substance that the attacker had placed in her nose, leaving her nearly unconscious. Suddenly, Xiao heard another strange noise, as if someone were approaching the village. He discovered that guards were also chasing the stranger and struggling with him. Xiao ordered the boys to take Chu and Wei back home and tell everything to Senior Tu Chu. The young man shared his suspicions about a spy who had been close to the girl. Hours later, the village finally became calm, and Xiao was able to return home in peace. Meanwhile, Yuan Fei stayed in bed for a long time, having terrible dreams after taking a heavy blow to the head. His room was filled with old, dirty papers, as if no one had cleaned the place for a long time. After waking from confused dreams, he immediately looked for a cigarette to calm himself down. Even so, he could not get Sha Yu out of his head. He could not believe that a young man who seemed weak had managed to beat him so badly. It was strange because in 4 years of living with Diao Meng, Shai had never gotten involved with her in a way that could ease the unbearable pain he felt. The man looked for pain medication, but his real concern was something else. He needed to get close to the princess to carry out an order from her father. Shao was very worried about this and decided that the next day he would bring one of her father's personal guards with him to make sure nothing happened to her. Meanwhile, Yang slept peacefully in the next room. Yan Fei and Fu Qiaobai helped the girl reach the meeting place at the end of the party. She had drunk too much and was already exhausted. The boys took care of her and helped her lie down to rest.
The next day, everyone returned to school. Of course, Chiriyu was there, along with her secret guard, Xiao Lu. As he approached the classroom, someone invited Tu Yu to a show as a sincere apology. The invitation came from Rani, who knew the girl liked the star Su Li, scheduled to perform the following week. Beside him was an unfamiliar man with long hair, much older than the others. In class, Shao played his role well, acting like a young man who simply wanted to get to know the princess better and treated everyone politely, without making enemies. The man greeted Shao respectfully and asked why he had chosen to hide at the university after losing a love. The girls in the classroom were surprised to see someone openly trying to claim a special place in the princess's heart so quickly. Shao grew thoughtful, wondering whether he had failed to hide his true nature and whether he was really being seen as a normal student. Because of that, he decided to stick to his original plan and cut Zhou off before he said anything unnecessary. However, the man had brought a martial artist with him who immediately defended himself. A strange energy appeared between them, and Xiao Lu did not allow either of them to get hurt. The boy's hand felt as if it had struck a solid wall he could not break. Invisible barriers revealed the presence of an internal ability within that man, which greatly intrigued Xiao. The two skilled fighters kept trying to clash, but without success, blocked by that invisible force. Another man, anger in his eyes, tried to break through the barriers. Each of them had a mission to protect their master. The fighter was confident he could defeat his opponent by tearing off his head. He believed his internal strength was invincible, yet Xiao Lu blocked everything with ease. The man realized Xiao was not someone ordinary and that provoking him was pointless. He turned to Han Fei, asked him to bow, and apologized to Xiao on behalf of his master, who had done many wrong things. He wanted forgiveness and to avoid further conflict. Grabbing Han by the hands, the fighter threw him out the window in seconds, ending the fight. Xiao felt slightly disappointed as he wanted to win but could not. He looked at Tu Yu, who could not believe what she had just seen, the old man flying out the window. Xiao lied, saying they were only practicing martial arts and that there was no need to worry. The girls and the princess laughed, not really believing him. The other girls thought he was foolish, but Xiao knew things were not that simple. Xiao used the system to find out what power that man had, and discovered it was a martial arts technique called Ti. To use that ability, he would need to complete an extra mission. A week later, the college soccer tournament took place at the university stadium. Xiao joined because he liked sports that helped keep his body strong and resilient. From time to time, he glanced at the girls cheering only for him. The class could not stop staring, admiring his body and appearance. Because of him, everyone gathered at the field to watch the match. During the competition, many beautiful girls tried to get Xiao's attention. He did not like it, especially when they got too close. The girls were overly enthusiastic, almost clinging to Xiao Lu. Tiyu left class every day remembering the night he saved her from danger. She could not erase from her mind the moment the criminal came close and grabbed her face. Suddenly, an acquaintance approached her and asked why the princess was looking at Zia as if she were in love. Tiyu denied it, saying a girl like her would never fall for an ordinary fighter. Meanwhile, a university student named Dupan Fei overheard the conversation and realized they were talking about Zia. He was not indifferent to the princess and decided to find out who his rival was. Dupan Fei went to the soccer field, introduced himself to Zialo, and said he had no one to play with, asking for his help. Zia did not want to respond because he did not want to meet anyone new. Besides that, he found Du somewhat strange, but Du did not wait for an answer and said he expected honest criticism of his moves. He looked at Zia with a strong desire to win, confident that his skill would surpass his opponent. Then Duponfei used his special move called Tiger Throw. Suddenly, Duponfei launched the ball at high speed toward Zia. Tiyu shouted for him to be careful, but she underestimated the savior. Zia easily stopped the ball and calmly placed it on the ground, shocking everyone. The students began whispering, amazed that no one had ever managed to stop that shot before, and their admiration for Zia grew even more. Ponfei's classmate, who was very skilled, nearly fell over when he saw someone successfully defend against him. Zia understood that Du wanted to humiliate him, so he gave his best in every move. He challenged Duponfei to show his special throwing skill. Without waiting for a response, Zia struck the ball with full force. The impact was so strong it nearly made his opponent faint. If it had hit directly, Duponfei could have been seriously injured, but Zia only meant to scare him and slightly diverted the shot. Even so, the ball went into the goal, tearing the net as if it were thin cloth. After that, Duponfei dropped to his knees, as if he had already accepted defeat. Zia warned that next time he would hit the target directly. Suddenly, a loud sound like thunder echoed in the sky, even though the weather was clear. It was the crowd celebrating the arrival of the star Su Li, who was coming to perform in the city. An airplane flew overhead, releasing a huge poster with the singer's image. She was truly incredible. Among the crowd was Xiao near the soccer field, and behind him was Chu Yue, in whose honor the concert had been organized. Soon, hundreds of people gathered at the concert venue, standing in silence and waiting for the music to begin. Suddenly, the impressive Su Li appeared on stage wearing a luxurious dress that shimmered across the hall. The song spoke about listening to rain falling on green grass, and how in those days he always waited to hear the voice of his beloved. Fans sang along and shouted excitedly, some waving glowing light sticks that created an incredible atmosphere.
Tiyu seemed out of sorts, but all her attention was focused on Sha, who was there with her. Xiao slowly approached the princess. In her mind, Yue almost jumped with joy because the young man was paying attention to her. At the same time, she felt confused, unable to understand her own feelings for Sha. After all, until recently, she had hated him. He passed by and said he would be going home early, and she emphasized that she would take care of his safety. Still, she felt disappointed that he was alone, with no one to protect him at that moment. Meanwhile, the music continued, and the song spoke of an unforgettable separation. The princess had not yet sought to reunite with her beloved, perhaps because she was overwhelmed by the laughter and tears rising inside her, a mix of emotions pressing down on her, as if she were trying to follow some celestial trend to be incomparable. At the same time, Huanfei was talking with his acquaintance, Xiava, about a complicated situation. The heir had ordered a friend to take Chu Yue to the hotel, saying he would handle everything alone. Xiao suspected the two of them were passing information to Lord Shu's enemies, trying to replace him. Xiava tried to warn Huan that Princess Chu Yue was not easy to persuade into taking up a new hobby, but suddenly Xiao interrupted the conversation and directly asked them if they were really planning to organize an attack against Shu. The concert came to an end, and Su Li was escorted away amid loud applause. The students began discussing among themselves, saying the singer was unmatched and that no one expected to see her in that city. Now that they had the chance, they wanted her autograph after the successful show. Su Li quickly changed clothes and headed for her car. The vehicle sped off, leaving tire marks on the asphalt. Xiao felt something was wrong, so he followed her and tried to get a taxi. He managed to find an available car and told the driver to follow the woman. After leaving the parking lot, they stopped near the hotel close to the concert hall. The car Xiao was in parked in an underground garage. He moved carefully, trying not to draw attention. When two people got out of the car, Xiao thought they were Fuabai and Princess Tu Yue. It felt like a miracle to see the girl there, since just moments earlier, the singer Su Li had been getting into the car. Without thinking too much, Xiao gave a generous amount of money to the receptionist and asked her to tell him which room the couple had gone to. She said she did not know directly and explained that she could not disclose information about rooms such as 100 or 202. After that, Xiao immediately ran to find an elevator and reached the room as fast as possible to prevent Shu from mocking Tu Yue. He quickly located the elevator. As soon as Xiao reached the hallway, he heard a woman crying and screaming for help. He instantly realized the sounds were coming from room C202, exactly the one mentioned earlier. Without hesitation, he slammed the door hard and it burst open without needing a key, exactly what he needed. The door fell straight onto Fuabai, but sitting on the bed was not Chu Yue, it was Huanfei.
The man was shocked to see Xiao, and his behavior was strange and unexpected. Xiao started laughing at the sight because he never expected two men to share such a passionate relationship.
Han Fei immediately began apologizing, explaining that even though they had used prohibited substances, they had captured Su Li, not Tu Ye, the one Sha was protecting. However, because of the drugs, Sha now definitely wanted to wipe out those two scum. Fu Abai tried to calm Sha down, but Sha was firmly determined to punish them for their behavior, taking some satisfaction in teaching the villains a lesson. He struck them hard in their vital areas, showing no mercy. After that, he threw them out of the hotel room and stayed there alone, waiting for Su Li to recover. Meanwhile, he made some tea and searched online for more information about the prohibited substances the two had used. He discovered that they had poisoned the star with those pills. Hospitalizing her would seriously damage her career. The website said she needed to drink water mixed with certain substances and do several exercises. Energy drinks could help, but one option was to wait until the drug's effects wore off so the body could recover. The latest recommendations said to give her plenty of water, and if that didn't help, put her in a cold shower. When Sha decided to enter Su Li's room, she was lying there with red skin, groaning from the intense heat. She couldn't lie still, feeling her body pierced by unpleasant sensations. She had a high fever and seemed to be breathing hot air. Water should help her return to normal soon. Sha didn't know how to behave properly with such a respected woman and felt insecure, especially since she wasn't conscious at that moment. Seeing how beautiful she was, he knew other men would condemn him for not taking advantage of the situation and simply giving her sleeping pills, but he knew he was doing the right thing. He placed a pill in her mouth and told her to swallow it, saying she would feel better afterward. However, her behavior suddenly changed and she grabbed him by the neck. Despite the intense heat, Sha moved closer to her. Lily tried to press herself against him. Sha realized she was slowly falling asleep, but acting strangely and uncontrollably. He tried to stay composed and said he wouldn't take advantage of the situation and would continue to behave properly. But eventually, Su Li's behavior became unbearable for him. Then he raised the room temperature. At that moment, he was close to losing control, but after placing her back on the bed, he decided to leave her alone. Now he could only wait for the effects of the substances to pass. He carefully covered her and placed her long, silky hair over the pillow. Sha was forced to leave her in that position because he could no longer restrain himself. Suddenly, the girl gathered strength, grabbed his hand, and Sha pushed her back onto the bed. After that, she refused to let him leave her arms, wanting only to enjoy his muscular body with her fragile hands. At that moment, Shallow realized he could no longer resist, and feminine charm had finally overcome him.
Meanwhile, hanging in the sky was a mysterious balloon where constant discussions were taking place. It carried an eccentric rabbit holding binoculars, observing Zhao Zhang's every move. There was also a man at the ball whose opinions often conflicted with those of a woman on his ship. At the same time, Princess Chue quietly returned home and went straight to her father's office. This time, she came to talk about the personal guard her father had secretly sent her. She demanded to know the young man's residence, but her father couldn't tell her, as finding Zhao had become extremely difficult for him. He considered allowing his daughter to bother the young man so he would continue participating in the work. However, she explained that she only wanted to give Zhao an invitation to a party in honor of his birthday. Her father knew his daughter's personality well and feared risking her safety, but he couldn't withstand Shu's pressure and finally told her the direction on the condition that she wouldn't distract him from work the next day. Yue went to the boy's house, certain that this time she would succeed. After all, Xiao couldn't be that cold toward her. The princess did not tolerate anyone disobeying her will, so now she had to commit herself. She soon found the young man's building and went up the stairs looking for his apartment number. Suddenly, she saw the star, Sui, usually surrounded by extreme fanfare, wearing a man's sweater and glasses to stay anonymous, and no one recognized her. However, Shu immediately recognized the woman he'd seen on the grand stage the night before. The two girls passed each other in the hallway, but inside, Chu felt as if something had broken, a heavy weight pressing on her soul. She felt depressed.
An invitation slipped from her hands, the one she had carefully prepared just for Zhao Lo. Tears suddenly streamed down her face, something unusual for the princess who had survived many attacks. Meanwhile, her personal guard was lying on the bed, trying to understand what had happened to him the night before, when his system appeared and began explaining in detail what the user had done. It turned out that at that moment he could not rely on luck. The young man had an urgent task. Near the entrance where Chu was, she was being attacked, and if Zhao solved the problem within 3 minutes, he would earn 100 points. Otherwise, he would receive a random skill. Zhao didn't even have time to get dressed and had to run out in his underwear. He didn't wait for further system instructions and rushed out to find the young princess. Then the system told him to go downstairs and turn left. The personal guard looked at him amused, but Zhao quickly left and found Chu. He immediately reacted to the noise, but had no time to recover as Zhao instantly turned and kicked him in the face. The thief felt the force, a red mark appearing on his face, but Zhao did not stop and pressed down even harder.
He slammed the thief's head against the wall and the man began begging for mercy. Lu finally decided to end it and prepared his fists for the final blow. Suddenly, the system decided to toy with the hero's appearance, but Sha, still fully alert, asked the thief who had sent him. The thief replied that the black water pool could absorb heaven and earth, and that Sha was now a dead man. Sha didn't understand what the criminal meant and asked him to explain what the black pool was. Their conversation was interrupted by 2 guards who were supposed to be by Chu's side at all times, but arrived late. Thanks to Sha, everything ended well once again, and the men were endlessly grateful to him. The system then decided to reward the user for his skill, granting the promised 100 points. But because his underwear sprint surprised everyone, he received an extra 250 points. The system kept joking about the user's clothes until he finally couldn't take it anymore and told it to shut up. Sha ordered the guards to return to Lord Shu and not forget to ask whether he knew about the Blackwater Basin that could absorb heaven and earth. To continue his day, the man took a guard's uniform and stayed in his underwear for several days. Then Shu's birthday arrived, the party to which Sha was not invited. That day, Mr. Shu met with a young man and said that his work as his daughter's personal guard would now be finished. However, according to the agreement, it would only be officially approved a month later, as he still needed time to leave the job. The man explained that his opponent was weakened, and that now he could take advantage of the opportunity to grow rich, but that if it were not for his daughter's birthday, he would not have left even a trace of the enemy. He greeted Sha. He was immediately asked whether he knew what that phrase meant. He explained that Blackwater was the name of a major international criminal organization. Suddenly, one of Mr. Shu's subordinates rushed into the room with bad news. A group of mercenaries had arrived in the city the night before. The suspicion was that they were part of a group called Scorpion, linked to the Blackwater Company. Xiao Lo and Mr. Shu were shocked and worried, especially because this put Shui Yu in danger, as she could be the enemy's main target. Without wasting time, Xiao Lo decided to go after the criminal group. He confidently left the office, waiting for an exact location. A sniper named Walter received orders to fire shots near the guard to distract him, while the others were to capture the target. Walter accepted the mission and soon spotted the woman and the 2 men accompanying her. He signaled that he was ready to act. Meanwhile, Xiao Lo drove fast along an alternate route to reach the young woman known as Princess of Shu. On the way, he nearly crashed several times, but stayed focused, tracking the girl's location. He heard gunshots and realized he needed to deal with the sniper quickly. He ran toward the shots, knowing it was an extremely dangerous situation where more than one person could die. A mercenary group like that was stronger even than armed police. Xiao Lo trusted himself and kept running toward the ambush site. There, he saw a fully armed man in uniform, watching the girl who was helping the criminals by passing messages. The young woman seemed fine. Xiao Lo admired the strength of that Chinese woman and decided to act fast. He grabbed a knife and managed to subdue the sniper, stabbing him several times in the back until he began to bleed. Over the radio, Walter reported that the mission was going well and that it was time to prepare to leave the area. Xiao Lo replied that his partner was dead and did not back down despite the threats he received. He took the fallen sniper's weapon, ready to face whoever came next. Meanwhile, Shu Yu was stopped by a group, and Shulan stayed close to her. The princess had always been kind to Shulan, so she did not understand why she was being treated with such hostility. The man in charge received news of a warrior's death and an urgent evacuation order. He told the group that several companions had died. Grabbing the princess by the arms, he ordered everyone to follow him quickly. The team, which included a member called Alibi the Hare, ran toward the forest. Suddenly, in the middle of the path, a fast bullet struck the hare straight in the heart, shocking everyone. A second bullet appeared out of nowhere. Xiaolo realized that an animal was part of their group, something he had not noticed before. As they paused in confusion, another team member was shot in the leg. Someone shouted for them to get out of there and take the primary target away immediately. A bald man named Black Kale could not abandon a companion in danger, but he had no choice. He lifted Shuyu onto his shoulder and promised a friend that he would take revenge on the unknown young man who was attacking them. Meanwhile, the injured fighter tried to make his way out of the forest to call for reinforcements, but Xiao appeared in front of him. He asked whether the group would really leave their brothers behind in a moment of danger. The fighter had no time to answer properly, because Xiaolo demanded to know where the bald man who had abandoned him had fled. Xiaolo noticed that the criminal had been shot in the leg and used that weakness to track where the others were. When the man drew his weapon and pointed it at Xiaolo, trying to drive him away, Xiao dodged the bullet quickly. He lunged at the criminal, gripping his neck to stop him from causing further harm. It looked like a movie scene, with Xiaolo acting like a dramatic hero. He did not hesitate and tightened his grip, making it clear he would give no second chances. The Black Water Organization had already killed many of Lord Shu's guards, but Xiaolo would not allow them to take Princess Yu through kidnapping. After restraining the criminal, Xiaolo stood up and began searching the forest. Since it had rained, there were fresh footprints. He saw signs that a man had run through carrying a girl in his arms and carefully examined the tracks to determine their direction. Xiaolo quickly pursued his target.
The young man ran fast and soon spotted a man dressed in black fleeing ahead. Without hesitation, Xiaolo launched a surprise attack to prevent him from reaching a weapon. During the struggle, Xiaolo landed a heavy blow, knocking the man down. As a result, he dropped Princess Yu, who was tied up and too weak to stand on her own. Xiaolo decided to settle things with the bald man who suddenly appeared and struck him hard on the head. At that moment, Xiaolo noticed several unfamiliar people fleeing toward a nearby warehouse, which was also armed and part of the Black Water Group. He picked up Yu in his arms and began running, chasing after the other criminals. The princess struggled weakly, believing she had been kidnapped by someone else, but Xiaolo spoke to her calmly. She soon realized that he was an ally. He told her to stay quiet so she wouldn't interfere with the mission and held the princess firmly by the neck because they had to move fast. Xiao prepared himself for any fight ahead, even knowing that he was now responsible for her safety. Holding the princess, he jumped high to put distance between them and the mercenaries. Meanwhile, the strange hare recovered and went to its leader, saying that Xiao had shot it. This person could jump 2 meters high while carrying someone, almost like a robot. Soon, other members of the group heard nearby screams and ran toward the area after realizing something important was happening. Tui became terrified when he saw Xiao jump with such force and began screaming loudly. Xiao told him to be quiet because the noise could put both of them in danger. Princess Tui tried to recall what had happened earlier when she saw the star Lilier leaving the young man's apartment, but there was no time to talk. Xiao snapped a straw and told Tui to hold it in her mouth. He was thinking of the best way to protect her. Carefully, Xiao placed the princess under the water and told her to stay calm and breathe through the straw. She had to obey and remain there until Xiao told her it was safe. Meanwhile, the mercenaries continued searching for Xiao as he was now their target. One of them found shoe prints and showed them to the others. They believed Xiao was nearby and decided to follow the tracks. Tui stayed quietly underwater, breathing through the straw, while Xiao tried to mislead the mercenaries searching for him. He did not understand why it was taking them so long to find him, since not even his shadow was visible. The mercenaries said Xiao was very skilled. At one point, a rope appeared around Xiao's neck, and he reacted carefully. He threw the rope over a tree branch and dragged a criminal toward it. If Xiao could hold this man, called Red Ghost, a little longer, he could finish him quickly. But Xiao had another plan. He lifted the criminal and removed the rope from his neck. Red Ghost struggled to breathe and was unable to make any sound for a moment, as the rope had tightened around his throat. Meanwhile, the group leader was surprised by the disappearance of one of his warriors. He spoke with a man named HW about the missing soldier, but upon closer inspection, the soldier was very close to them. It was Red Ghost. Shao wasted no time and used all his strength to attack another enemy, leaping forward. Shao jumped from the tree straight onto a man below and stabbed a knife into his chest, killing him quickly.
The commander turned toward the dead man named Goral after hearing noise on the radio, but instead of another fighter, Shaolu answered. Shaol said there were still possible victims to save. The commander, called Falcon, became worried about his other companions who were also in danger of dying. Shaolu picked up a weapon and began using it against the criminals. Soon he encountered several warriors searching for him. One of them tried to shoot Shaolu in the head, but Shaolu was faster and fired first, hitting another enemy in the head with a perfect shot. Now only 9 enemies remained alive, and Shaolu went after them to end it quickly. He found their hideout where all the soldiers were gathered. Using his skills, Shaolu killed 3 of them rapidly. The mercenaries barely managed to react, as they were more focused on grabbing weapons from each other. One of them, named Trinity, tried to charge at Shaolu, not realizing how dangerous that was. Tui, wielding a sharp knife, killed 2 of them on her own. Then the main commander appeared and threatened Shaolu with a knife, ordering him to call his colonel. Shaolu refused and said he knew his skills were superior to all of their soldiers, but that Blackwater would never let him live in peace. Shaolu did not let the commander finish and killed him by driving the knife into his throat. After that, Shaolu helped Shu out of the water and told her to take off her dress as soon as she got home so she wouldn't get sick. He handed the princess the phone her father had given her earlier and warned her never to talk about what happened there, keeping everything secret. Shaolu left the princess alone and departed early so she would not be seen as someone connected to him or to Miss Chu. As soon as the girl arrived home, her father and a police officer were already waiting. The officer listened to everything she said and promised that the police would not bother her anymore, but warned that if she remembered anything else, they would return quickly to investigate. Mr. Shu asked his subordinate, Lan Su, to help keep the officer occupied. After the officer left, the father put his daughter to bed so she could rest. After everything she had been through, he locked the bedroom, making sure she was safe, but the princess could not sleep, thinking about Shaolu. She remembered his face and blushed just thinking about him, enchanting by his courage and appearance. Meanwhile, Mr. Shu returned to the main hall. Soon, Lan Su arrived, escorting the police officers out of the house. Mr. Shu then told Lan Su that he planned to invite Shaolu to the Yongchan Pavilion and protect him well, since he had saved his daughter's life. Lan Su was tasked with organizing a proper dinner for the occasion. The next day, the Shu family and Shaolu went together to Shishan, Shanghai, where a table full of delicious food awaited them. During the dinner, Mr. Shu made a toast thanking Shaolu for saving his only daughter. Shaolu replied humbly, saying he had only done what he thought was right and did not need a celebration for it. Soon after, Lan Su appeared with a folder of documents, something Mr. Shu had requested. He had bought a new company and needed a manager, so he offered the position to Shaolu. Suddenly, Father Shengan Huan Hanfi stormed into the hall with his guards. He ordered everyone to prepare for a punishment ceremony against Shaolu, seeking revenge for his son's death. Mr. Shu stepped in and asked Gengyan what he intended to do. Gengyan said that Shaolo had restrained his son, and now he wanted to do the same to Shaolo, claiming that a guard should not be receiving protection. Even after Shaolo was already dead, a couple from the Shu family still lived in the spiritual world, and had forbidden him from entering their pavilion and disrupting the celebration. This made Gengyan extremely angry, so he ordered Lanso to remove Ancheng from the room. Hearing all this, the director decided to leave. Before going, he warned that Shu would not be able to protect Shaolo everywhere. Shortly after, Jua Chan asked to speak with Looney, who agreed to help. In return, he wanted Mr. Shu to return to the dinner. The young man thanked him for defending Wan Hanfi. After that, the man returned to the documents and said it was rare to find someone you could truly trust, but Shaolo was one of those people. Xiaolo understood the message. He said he liked the job very much, but wanted to grow through his own merit. Shu commented that if Xiaolo accepted, he could become the company's actual manager. Lu Fan only wanted to receive 20% of the profits, and the rest would go to Xiaolo. The offer sounded good, so Xiaolo asked for some time to think. The man agreed and gave him 3 days to decide calmly. After that, the two toasted cheerfully and continued lunch. Later, Xiaolo returned to his car and asked the system why, even after so many deaths, he felt nothing. The system replied that it had forgotten to mention something. The body of the mercenary king had emotional resistance, so it was normal for him to feel that way. Suddenly, Xiaolo's phone started ringing. He did not want to answer, but the calls kept coming. It was San and Chan, who wanted to have a serious talk with him. When they met, an old acquaintance began talking about what he knew. He wanted to better understand Xiaolo's job as bodyguard to a rich woman and, above all, whether there was anything more between them besides work. Xiaolo did not want to go deeper into it and explained that he was only hired to protect Xu Ye and that she was a very good person. Even so, San kept insisting, saying that Xiaolo's vision could last another 20 years. Xiaolo was confused, not understanding where the conversation was going. Shan tried to clarify things and said that in their last conversation, Xiaolo had mentioned that Xu Manit had gone to Huan Fa Fa. This made Xiaolo remember the day he completed a mission system and saved a girl, but he did not give much importance to those details. Xia decided to get straight to the point and showed Xiaolo a photo of a woman. When he looked at it, he wondered if she was not the same girl he had been friendly with before. Even suspicious, he only said that she looked delicate, but in reality she was a demanding boss, known for creating problems at work just to pressure people. Since her house was close to the office, he could not even try to avoid her. San asked if they could work together, but Xiaolo's phone rang again, interrupting the conversation. It was Shu's sister inviting him to a dinner with the hotel's most beloved girl. Xiaolo did not tell her that he had broken up with Xu Manit. He later found out that Shan, who tried to get closer to the girl after the conversation, ended up becoming her friend. She commented that her brother was handsome and scheduled a date for the next day.
Sen Yu seemed gentle and shy, just smiling at the comment. When Shang heard about the date, he decided to take Xiaolo to a beauty salon to fix his appearance before meeting the girl. He left Xiaolo inside and waited outside. Shortly after, Luo arrived by taxi. From Xiaolo's expression, San Yu realized he did not like the new look, but there was no more time to change it. While Sen tried to reassure his friend, saying the stylist was good, Shu's sister called again to set everything up. Xiaolo felt awkward since he was not used to this kind of date and did not feel prepared. The sister was happy that San and Shang had helped him get ready, since he probably would not have gone on his own. The girl wanted to know who Shang was and why he was there. Before he could answer, Sen Yu introduced herself first, very shyly. Xiaolo responded politely, but he was not excited about the blind date idea, so he decided to distract himself by ordering food. Sen Yu called the waiter. During the meal, Shu tried to start another conversation, but no one seemed interested. Then, Shang nudged Xiaolo, saying the girl was very beautiful. At that moment, Xiaolo realized that everyone was trying to bring him and Sen Yu closer. 2 hours later, the table was full of leftover seafood. Sen apologized for overdoing it and turned to his brother, asking what was wrong. Xiaolo was thinking about his friend, and even though he thought Sen Yu was a good person, he did not want to get romantically involved at that moment. He did not see Sen Yu as a potential girlfriend. Suddenly, Shu said she was going to move and asked Sen to take her home. In a bad mood, Sen replied that her husband, Tan Shen, could do that, since he was not anyone's driver. The girl stood up, took Sen by the hand, and told him not to interfere with his brother's love life. Xiaolo then said he would spend Sunday at home. He and Sen Yu stayed there until nightfall. When they left, Xiaolo insisted on walking her to her door. She said she could go alone, but he preferred to make sure she arrived safely. He also promised her sister that he would get her friend home safely and without any trouble.
The street near Sen Yu's house was poorly lit, and at night it was very dangerous. Suddenly, an elderly man appeared running and desperately asking for help. Xiaolo, without thinking twice, stepped in front of the girl to protect her. He did not know who might be lurking in the darkness, but when Sen Yu heard the man's voice, she recognized him as her uncle. Right after that, several unknown men appeared out of nowhere. Their leader heard what Sen Yu said and claimed that her uncle's debts were now her responsibility and that her uncle's life was in their hands. Sen Yu was confused. She knew nothing about those debts and wanted to know who those men were. Meanwhile, her uncle was already on his knees, bracing for the worst. Even though he was afraid, he did not think about himself. He only wanted to protect his niece and threw himself in front of her so they wouldn't hurt her. But one of the thugs was faster and punched her uncle hard in the head, knocking him to the ground.
The girl cried when she saw that and could not do anything, as the men would not let her get close. Then Sun Nanjan, the leader of the group, looked at the girl, found her pretty, and suggested taking her as payment for the debt. He approached her in a threatening way and asked if she wanted to end up at the bottom of the river that dark night. Suddenly, Xiao stepped into the conversation. While everyone was distracted, he had already started recording everything on his phone. He stayed calm and told the criminals that if they did not stop immediately, he would call the police and hand over the video as evidence of what they were doing. The leader just smiled and asked if Xiao really thought he could threaten him. He added that if Xiao wanted everyone to leave, he would have to pay 2 million at the casino to cover the debt. Xiao replied that he had nothing to do with it and did not have that kind of money, but since he was now involved because of the man's niece, he could not simply ignore it. He then asked for half an hour to get 2 million in chips and settle everything. The leader replied that their casino had a very high minimum. The minimum stake was 10,000 yen. He then asked if Xiao could afford it. Without hesitating, Xiao took out his card and said he had 100,000 yen, which would be more than enough. Sun Yu tried to calm him down and asked him not to get so involved, since that man owned a dangerous casino and they barely knew each other. It was not fair for him to risk himself like that. Even so, Xiao assured her that he would never do anything unless he was sure of what he was doing. Right after that, he asked the system if there was any useful skill for gambling. The system replied that he could exchange points for professional-level gambling skills. Xiao accepted immediately, spending 600 points on it. He now had 218 points left, but winning was what mattered. 30 minutes later, the casino owner ordered the guards to bring the car. The vehicle arrived and Xiao got in together with Sun Yu and her uncle. As soon as they arrived at the casino, the owner warned them that once they entered the gaming room, there was no leaving until payment was made. Xiao handed over his bank card and asked for all the money to be exchanged for chips. Meanwhile, Sun Yu was extremely nervous, not knowing how she could ever thank him for all that. Then Sun Nanjan, the boss, approached Xiao and said that she herself would bear the consequences of whatever happened there. Sun Yu was trembling the entire time, terrified of what might happen to her and her family. Xiao tried to calm her down, saying that just having her there already meant a lot to him. Soon, the casino owner returned with the chips. Xiao had no more time to think and went straight to the betting table. There, he could finally use his new skill. The game host began narrating each step, explaining how the dice fell. Xiao analyzed everything calmly, calculating the risks, because every move could change the fate of an entire family. In one round, he predicted that the result would be 4, 5, or 6, forming a high stack. Trusting his instinct, Xiao pulled out a 100,000 yen chip and firmly declared that he was making the maximum bet. The dice were thrown, and soon a crowd gathered around the table, curious to see the outcome. Just as Xiao had predicted, the dice formed a high stack. He hit it perfectly.
In the first game, Xiao placed a bet and won in impressive fashion. With the prize in hand, he decided to keep playing to try to recover the full amount of the debt. He was confident, especially after acquiring a new gambling skill. Meanwhile, the casino owner was watching everything from a surveillance room where he could see every table. He focused on Xiao and began to suspect that something strange was going on. However, one of the security staff reviewing the betting history assured him that Xiao was playing fairly.
Suddenly, another guard rushed in and informed the boss that the young man had already won more than $1.5 billion. The casino owner was furious and ordered the dice to be switched. The security guard quickly relayed the order to the man at the table with Xiao. That man, the current dealer, apologized to Xiao and said he had to leave urgently. Shortly after, Mr. Tsu took his place. As soon as the new dice were put into play, Xiao noticed something was wrong. The way the dice moved was different, and he knew it was outside the rules. Because of that, he hesitated on his next move. Everyone in the room began to pressure him. Sun Yu noticed the change in Xiao's behavior and asked what was happening. Mr. Tsu also questioned why Xiao, who had been betting so quickly before, was now hesitating. Xiao smiled and replied directly in that it was curious how the dealer pretended not to know the reason of his suspicion. The dealer began to get nervous, his expression changed, and it became clear that he had something to hide. That was exactly the reaction Xiao wanted to see. Annoyed by Xiao's silence, the dealer urged him to place his bet, saying he was stalling too much. At that moment, Xiao came up with an idea and decided to share his plan with Sun Nanjan, asking for his help. Even though he had doubts, the man agreed to follow Xiao's instructions. Xiao assured him that everything would work out and that he would pay off the entire debt. Meanwhile, the person in charge of the bets began to think that he should be the one deciding the direction of the game, not Xiao. To him, the chance of victory seemed to be slipping away. Suddenly, the casino owner personally appeared in the room and announced that the 30-minute limit was over. Even so, Xiao replied calmly that he would win and that there was no reason to interrupt anything. In the end, Xiao decided to place his bet. The dealer then warned that this time, skipping the round would not be allowed and that Xiao would have to follow through to the end. Xiao stared at the dice carefully, trying to imagine the result before seeing it. After a moment of silence, he took a deep breath and announced his bet. He chose a high stack. The dealer, watching closely, smiled maliciously. Deep down, he hoped Xiao would lose all his money and never have another chance to control anything like that again. He believed he could manipulate the dice easily, as he always did. The casino owner kept watching everything through the cameras, confident that his employee would handle the situation. But suddenly, the players around the table began to shout with excitement. Xiao had won again. He managed to detect the hidden trick that had already been set up and bet with even more confidence. This time, he predicted combinations like 3-3-4, which would result in a high stack, and he was right.
The casino owner was furious. He wanted Shaw to leave bankrupt and for Sun Yu's family to be crushed by the debt. But Shaw went straight to him, returned chips worth $2 million, settling everything, and asked for his bank card back. That night was intense, and the gambling lasted until dawn. Everyone left in the morning. Sun Yu's uncle sincerely thanked Shaw and said that he could look for him whenever he needed help, but also warned that the casino was a dangerous place and that, after winning so much, Shaw should be careful. Sun Yu approached Shaw and invited him to take a taxi together. She showed concern and even suggested that he move away for a while, just to be safe, but Shaw confidently replied that he could take care of himself. Meanwhile, manager Jin refused to accept the loss. One of the guards asked if he was really going to let it end like that, but the man replied coldly that this was a casino, not a charity, and that they did not give money away for free. Then he ordered the most skilled guards to be gathered to set up an ambush near the house. Meanwhile, Sun Yu's uncle said he needed to go back home and share the good news with the family. He also asked his niece to stop any involvement with gambling because it could put her life at risk. He had already realized how dangerous all of that was. With a calmer heart, he got into a taxi and left. Shaw also called a car and asked Sun Yu to ride with him, just to make sure she got home safely. He wanted to be certain that nothing bad would happen to her. As soon as they got into the taxi, Sun Yu asked the driver for a pen and some paper. She wrote a kind of receipt, putting her name on it and the amount she owed Shaw. Then she smiled at him and promised she would pay back every last cent. The driver heard everything, surprised, but said nothing. Shaw replied that she didn't need to do that. He explained that he hadn't lost anything. In fact, he had even walked away with an extra profit of $4,000. But Sun was determined. She said she wouldn't feel right if she didn't pay him back. Shaw realized it was useless to argue. She was determined and, at the same time, very kind. As he looked at her sitting beside him in the car, he noticed how beautiful, intelligent, and proud Sun was, the kind of person who doesn't accept help without giving something in return. Suddenly, Sun turned to Shaw and said she wanted to know a secret. Shaw didn't answer. She wanted to understand how he could predict the exact numbers that would come up on the dice. Shaw just gave a slight smile and said it was luck. Sun smiled and said it seems better to stay close to Shaw because that way his luck might improve. Those words cheered up the boy who had argued with her the night before. The two made peace. When they arrived at Shaw's place, they got out of the car. Sun commented that she liked the place where he lived. Shaw was happy and said it was already late and that she also needed to go home. Before leaving, Sun asked to use Shaw's phone. She started typing something that he found strange, but soon handed the phone back and said that now they had each other's contact and could go home without worries. It was a very sweet gesture, and Shaw smiled happily. He thanked her and told her to be careful. San saved Xiao's contact with the nickname, "the guy who gives money," and even added a photo of him. After that, Xiao went back home, to a neighborhood that was new to him, a place he had never visited before. It was similar to other parts of the city, with tall buildings and some old houses that still showed a bit of the area's history. As he walked and thought about life, Xiao didn't expect any danger, but suddenly he saw a group of men armed with batons in front of him. One of them said Xiao had incredible luck to turn 100,000 into 2 million. His brother, named Jin, didn't like that and said they should show the kid he wasn't invincible. Xiao replied that he was in a good mood and didn't want to fight, advising them to leave him alone. They didn't like his confidence and attacked him as a group. Meanwhile, San and Chan were sitting in a fancy restaurant in the city when Xiao called to warn them. He asked his friend to get the car and come after him because he couldn't take a taxi. San didn't wait for any further explanation and left the food behind to help his friend. When he parked near Xiao, he couldn't believe what he saw, a scuffle with several men around him. But Xiao was calm and told Chan that everything was under control. It was a common gang fight and they ended up exchanging blows. San understood that no one would get seriously hurt, so he suggested they go eat and talk calmly. Chan agreed but said he would only go if Xiao paid the bill because he wanted to properly hear what Xiao had to say. Chan drove fast to get to a good restaurant where a waiter was already waiting and prepared a table for them.